So you might have noticed a few more St. George's flags around this week than maybe you expected.
Mm.
Maybe even wondered if you'd somehow completely missed the day itself, April 23rd.
Yeah, it can be confusing.
Well, you're not going crazy. This year, the celebration for England's patron saint, it's taken a bit of a detour.
That's right.
And today, for this deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly why St. George's Day isn't falling on its usual spot this time around.
Yeah, we've been looking at this really helpful piece from Bristol Live. It lays out the date shift pretty clearly.
Okay.
And that's also a good reminder, about who St. George actually was, beyond the dragon story, which everyone knows.
Right, the classic tale.
He's actually a figure with, well, quite a bit of historical weight. And symbolic weight, too. Revered way beyond just England.
Okay, so April 23rd, that's the date we all kind of have marked down, yeah.
Usually, yes. That's the standard one.
And his connection to England, it's not like it just happened recently, is it? This goes way back.
Oh, way back. You're looking at 1350. King Edward III. He officially declared St. George the patron saint of England then.
1350. Wow.
And interestingly, that same year, the Order of the Garter was founded, also in St. George's name. So really cemented his position.
Right.
But here's the twist. St. George himself, not English.
Yeah, I think I knew that, but it's still surprising when you hear it.
It is. He was essentially chosen, picked out, you could say, to represent the qualities the English crown wanted to project at the time.
Huh. Makes you think, doesn't it? About the stories nations tell about themselves.
Definitely.
So, okay, April 23rd is the norm. It's deeply embedded. What's actually caused the change this year? What's the specific reason?
It all comes down to the rules. The regulations of the Church of England specifically.
Okay.
They have rules stipulating that if a saint's day, any saint's day, including St. George's, falls during Holy Week or Easter week.
Which is the period leading up to Easter and the week after.
Exactly. Palm Sunday, right through to the second Sunday of Easter, inclusive. If the saint's day lands in that window, it gets moved.
Right, let me just check. I've got this. So, because of where Easter landed this year, April 23rd fell inside that specific period.
Precisely. Smack bang in the middle, you could say. And that's the trigger for the rescheduling.
Okay.
The church guidelines are really quite specific on this. In these cases, the saint's day gets shifted to the Monday immediately after that whole Easter fortnight period ends.
The Monday after the second Sunday of Easter.
That's the one.
So the big question then, when are we actually celebrating St. George's Day this year? What's the new date?
This year, St. George's Day has officially been moved to Monday, April 28th.
April 28th, okay.
So, yeah, anyone who had plans, penciled in for the 23rd needs to update their calendar.
Good to know. It's a reminder, isn't it, that even things we think of as, well, maybe secular traditions can still be tied to religious calendars.
Absolutely. These things often intersect in ways we don't always think about.
Now, even with this date shift, the article you mentioned, the Bristol Live piece, it said something about an event still happening around the usual time at Downing Street.
Ah, yes. Downing Street apparently held a reception. It was on the evening of April 22nd, so just before the traditional date.
Okay.
And what the article highlighted as, well, particularly noteworthy was that this was apparently the first time a prime minister has personally hosted such an event.
Oh, really? The first time? That is interesting. Why this year, you wonder?
Exactly. It does raise that question. What's the message, perhaps?
And did the article say what the focus was? What was discussed at this number 10 reception?
Well, reportedly, the plan was for the prime minister to talk about modern patriotism.
Modern patriotism, okay.
Yeah, and framing it, apparently, as a way to improve the lives of working people. The event was also a chance to meet public sector workers, NHS, police, that sort of thing.
Right.
It was mentioned as being part of this wider initiative they're calling the Plan for Change.
So kind of weaving the traditional symbol of St. George into, well, contemporary policy talk.
You could certainly see it that way. It's putting a modern spin on a very old tradition, for sure.
Definitely. Now, this rescheduling, moving the date, does this happen often? Or is it quite rare for St. George's Day?
It's not like an every other year thing, but it's not completely unprecedented either.
Yeah.
The article pointed out the last time it was moved like this was actually back in 2019.
Oh, right.
Which was, 6 years before this year? So, yeah, there's definitely a precedent for it when the Easter dates line up in this particular way.
6 years ago. So it's occasional, but not unheard of. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
So for people wanting to celebrate on the actual rescheduled date, the 28th, what are the typical things people do? What are the traditions for St. George's Day in England?
Oh, you get a whole range of, oh, well, very English sorts of celebrations. Pubs are a big one, often special events or decorations.
Right.
The Sunday roast idea often kind of carries over, even if the day itself is a Monday this year. You might see local parades in some towns, lots of people flying the St. George's Cross flag, obviously.
Yeah.
Church services dedicated to St. George, and you might well bump into some Morris dancing.
Ah, the classic. Can't forget the Morris dancers.
Definitely a quintessential English folk tradition you sometimes see.
So, wrapping this up then, the main takeaway here is,
Hmm.
if you were geared up for St. George's Day on April 23rd, you weren't wrong about the usual date, but
But yeah,
the official celebration this year has been bumped to Monday, April 28th.
that's the key point. All because of those Church of England rules about how Easter week affects saints' days.
It really shows how these different threads of our, cultural calendar can weave together and affect each other, sometimes in ways you don't expect.
Exactly. It's a fascinating interaction.
It really does make you think about how traditions work, doesn't it? Even ones that seem completely fixed, set in stone, can actually be quite fluid because of these underlying rules or interactions. Maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. The whole idea of patron saints. Why do different countries or groups choose certain figures? What does that choice say about their identity or history? It's a really interesting mix of, well, history, faith, and national feeling.